Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Two Asian Blokes Podcast, a podcast where we talk about Asian pop culture, films, TV shows, comic books, anime, music, food, video games, whatever we're feeling at the time. Really, my name is Dan with a H, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Tavi. Hey, Tavi.
Got a bit of a special episode today.
I want to paint a picture for you, Tavi. It's 2003. Everybody's watching Everybody Loves Raymond on their low-definition TVs. Everybody's listening to One Direction on their radios. Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl is playing in theaters. So that's what everybody is talking about. But not us, right, Tavi? 2003, what were we doing?
Well, I was watching Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh, yeah, it's a pretty good movie, yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't watching Everybody Loves Raymond because you know how I feel about sitcoms.
Yeah, I know how you feel about sitcoms. It's a good show, though. But no, we were probably sitting at my house, or maybe your house, I don't really remember, watching a... most likely bootleg version of the movie we are going to talk about today. What movie is that?
Yeah, we're talking about Park Chan Wook's Oldboy, not the Spike Lee remake.
What?
Don't
What? I've written
movie.
so many notes, Tavi, about the Spike Lee remake starring Josh
don't watch the
Brolin and
remake.
Elizabeth Olsen.
But we're covering the classic, the Korean film of the Korean film of the century, I guess. Yeah.
Yep.
Of the millennia.
When most people think of Korean films, they might think like this film will definitely pop in their head. Oldboy, directed by Park Chan Wook, which is celebrating its 20-year anniversary this year. So in order to talk about this, shall we say, complex movie that you and I are perhaps maybe a little bit too close to, we have enlisted some help. We're joined today by two very special guests, Rhiannon and Margaret, new friends of the show and hosts of the delightful podcast Character Chaos, a podcast where they go through fiction one character at a time. Hello, Rhiannon and Margaret.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Thank you for joining us.
Are we really delightful? I really appreciate that.
Well, you guys are. You're very entertaining to listen to.
I mean, compared to us, you're delightful. I mean,
Yeah.
But no, thank you for taking time to join us today. I know it's quite late in the evening for you guys over there.
A little bit. Although we probably record this late anyway. We're not very good with our schedule. This isn't actually that unusual.
Are you night recorders?
We used to be, and we got slightly older, and I think something triggered in our brains, and now we go to sleep pretty early, but it used to be bad. We were not very responsible.
Yeah, I can't hack it anymore.
Yeah, that was us. We still do like the 8:30 recordings because we just do stuff and then
It kind of depends on the temperature of the day, right?
Yeah, for me it depends on the
right.
temperature
Yeah.
because it was summer and I can't stand anything that's above like 33 degrees in my room because I don't have AC, so it just like becomes a sauna in my recording room, and then I just die.
If Tavi is forced to turn on his fan, then it's a problem for Risky because it just sounds like a jet engine is taking off in the middle of the podcast, and then you've got friggin' ambulances driving past my place at all hours of the day.
Yeah, I was going to say I envy your weather, but now I don't. That sounds like a lot. I don't think I could handle that.
Yeah.
It's just reached autumn now, and it's like my sleep quality has improved so much more than summer, and when I'm just dying.
Yeah, you sound refreshed, Tavi, like compared to me.
Well, I woke up at 7:30, had my coffee, just sat in the garden and
perform your morning ablutions.
Oh, damn.
That sounds really nice.
So thoughtful.
Well, I try to get a bit of a rhythm because, as you guys said, as you get older, you need to start doing these kind of things. Can't just drink a bottle of whiskey and then get up the next day and go to work. That doesn't work anymore. I can't do that.
No.
But yeah, this is our most ambitious episode. We're going through like 3 different time zones or 2 time zones. This is a big undertaking. So thanks for coming on.
No problem.
Thanks for watching a pretty extreme movie on the first recommendation. We threw you guys straight into the deep end.
Yeah, thank you for giving us Oldboy. Thank you for thrusting it into our lives.
Yeah, we thought we should give you a movie that kind of represents why we love this particular type of cinema, or like this kind of Korean Asian cinema.
Yeah.
even now, I think it's pretty unique of a film in the scope of Asian cinema. And he's like, Park Chan Wook's a pretty unique director as well. And yeah, it's quite iconic of a film. So we hope you enjoyed it. Like, you can tell us if you didn't enjoy it. You know? Just because we love this film doesn't mean that everybody's going to love this film. It's quite...
it's a lot.
I don't know if it is divisive, actually, but yeah.
I did have moments at the beginning where I must say I wasn't entirely sure. It did rope me back in at the end. I was there. But there were moments where I was like, this is a lot. This is a lot of a movie.
That's fair, yeah.
But it brought me
we
back.
made a terrible mistake partnering up with these weirdos.
Yeah. Just like, oh yeah, let's watch this lovely Korean cinema.
Yeah. It was a lot.
But before we get into talking about Oldboy, I just wanted to ask you guys, like, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you didn't have too much of experience watching Asian films in general, or you watch a few? Like, what's your experience with watching, like, Asian movies?
I mean, with me, I feel like I have this really odd contrast where, like, as a kid, I watched a ton of, like, Ghibli movies and, like, Bollywood movies that my mum loved. So I have a lot of experience with, like, Japanese and, like, Indian cinema in that way. But it's all, like, kind of, like, childlike wonderment. Like, Ghibli is so full of, like the wonder of being a kid and a lot of emotions. And it was really just, like, entertainment. I wasn't thinking with a critical lens when I was, like, 5. And then now there's all this, like, really thought-provoking, like, devastating movies from Korean cinema that have become, like, really celebrated in the West in the last few years, like Parasite and Drive My Car. And I feel like that I am looking at with a critical lens, and Oldboy is pretty firmly in that category, I feel like. And so I feel like there's no in-between with me. It's either, like, the pure joy of, like, cinema.
Not much childlike wonder in Oldboy.
Yeah,
You're right.
really not a lot. Like, just like society is crumbling movies that have become quite resonant now. And I feel like, Asian cinema, it's quite contrasting. I don't really have much of an in-between. But I don't think I have that broad of a knowledge. But I like the stuff I watched.
Yeah, no, I mean, Ghibli movies are great.
Yeah, masterpieces.
I think I was kind of in the same realm. Like, when I watched those movies, I was quite young as well. So I didn't really think about like themes and stuff. It's just like the beauty of the art, I guess, and the the cute characters and yeah, like that. Even today, you kind of get swept away by all that. But yeah, you're right. It is definitely different.
Distinctly
the
different
films that are celebrated in the West today. Okay, how about you, Rhiannon?
I admittedly do have a lot less experience, to be honest. Like, I've watched the big ones that have, like, gained mainstream, like, attention. Like, have the bigger ones. Like, I've seen, like, the Parasite and Decision to Leave and things like that, and Squid Game and all of that kind of stuff, but other than that, I really don't have that much experience, so Oldboy was quite fun. It felt very new, you know?
Oh, that's good. There's a trick because you guys gave the correct answer, because often when I meet a lot of people who are quite new to Asian cinema or haven't experienced it, and I tell them, oh, I like Asian movies. And they're like, oh, yeah, Crazy Rich Asians is pretty good. And I'm just like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
That's Tony's little test that he gives people. If they utter any of those 3 words, crazy, rich, or Asian, then he just
Solid
shuts out. Like, he'll smile and nod, but like he's mentally checked out of the conversation. Yeah. No, that's good. And you mentioned Decision to Leave, which is also a Park Chan Wook film. So I mean, it's quite a different Park Chan Wook film to the film we're going to talk about today.
Very restrained, one of my favorite movies of last year.
It's good you've seen it, because we can kind of like compare those 2 films then. The differences.
But I think generally you guys have watched like quite a good number of like highly critically acclaimed Asian films. I mean, you talked about Drive My Car. Like, Drive My Car, like, that movie hits me so much in the feels that, like, I'll always sit there and watch it, like, teary-eyed and just, like, what have I done with my life kind of sentiment. I love that
I have
movie.
a car like this.
I really want that car.
So
That's the
good.
takeaway of that movie. I wish I had that car. Yeah, I feel like if you're into movies in the last like 5 years, you naturally get a lot of those movies because so many of those like Korean movies have been so like celebrated by the West recently, and so you kind of get handed Parasite in a way that movies of that quality and career I probably wouldn't have seen like 10 years ago. All of a sudden they're being like celebrated in that way, so I feel quite lucky to have been able to see them,
Yeah.
that they're getting like attention internationally.
It's interesting because I don't think when Oldboy first came out in 2003, I don't think it received the same treatment in the West as movies like Parasite and Drive My Car and even Decision to Leave.
It had like that cult following. Like 2003, early 2000s was like a lot of the like extreme Asian cinema that was really popular. Like a lot of the horror stuff, a lot of the really
out of
violent
Japan
stuff.
and
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's how that got recognition. Because like Oldboy, I think when it was released, wasn't really considered like. I mean, these days Oldboy is considered like cinematic masterpiece. Like it's really like good filmmaking. But back then it's like, oh, let's watch some like
It was,
fucked up
yeah,
shit.
it was more like marketed as like a shock film, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Whereas,
That makes sense.
It does feel like it's really trying to be like provocative in every possible way.
Yeah.
and it
definitely.
succeeds, I would say.
It does.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, like Tavi's right. It is also like a brilliantly shot and framed film, which is like par for the course for Park Chan Wook, which we'll get to eventually. But yeah, I'm just interested to like. I wonder whether if Oldboy came out today, whether it would receive the same critical like love as these other films, or is it still a bit too much for cinema goers? What do you guys reckon?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think what has come out in the last like 5 years that is as provocative. And I don't know if I could think of something.
Because Parasite is a little bit like messed up, and Squid Game is a little bit messed up as
Yeah, I
well.
suppose so. And that was quite well received. So maybe it would be today.
I think it would do okay.
And people like Game of Thrones, right? So the idea of like
that's true.
Alternative sexual relationships is
Alternative.
It's already out there.
Non-traditional.
I mean, I'm trying to do non-spoilers first here.
Yeah.
For this 20-year-old movie.
It is a movie that I hadn't really heard of.
Yeah, I mean, like it took 10 years to get a terrible Hollywood remake of Oldboy. So, and like these days, I'm pretty sure the Parasite Hollywood remake is going to come out pretty soon. I don't know,
God. Oh, that is sad.
Bong Joon-ho is writing the TV series, so it might be okay.
Oh, it's a TV
And
series, is it?
Yeah, it's a TV series for Parasite. But he's had a pretty good track record with working with Western cinema as well, because his like Western stuff is pretty good. Like what was it, Okja and
Yeah.
Snowpiercer.
Snowpiercer, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I trust him.
like I've been pouring through all the Oldboy special features just for today. Like on the DVD, there's like a 3.5 hour video diary thing. I sat and just watched the whole thing.
Oh, that's so cool.
And then it's really like, it's really, really humbling to watch because so much shit goes wrong on a film set. Like, costumes don't arrive, actors getting injured. There's a very famous scene in this movie, the hallway fight scene, where he's like done 13 takes of that. And then like just
That
like
sounds like a lot of cardio.
the director's insidious method to get him really tired and use the later takes. It's just like, it's probably something I would do.
Yeah.
if I was
I mean,
directing.
like, directors can be assholes sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's all in the name of art, isn't it, Tommy?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So sometimes you got to crack a few eggs to make an omelet.
We need some old boys in the world, though. I'd be down
I
for
agree.
more old boy
I
stuff.
fully agree. Yeah. It's messed up in a fun way. Like you said it was fun, right? And I think that's the right approach when you're watching this film. Like a lot of people watch this film, it might be too much for them and they'll kind of like not see the fun aspects of it. Because the humor, it's all there. But I guess it the way that the humor is presented is also quite weird, which is kind of like a Park Chan Wook hallmark as well. So, yeah, I think maybe if you're not in the right headspace, you might find it hard to follow the comedic beats of this film, which will suck a lot of the fun out of the film as well.
Yeah.
And then you're just left with what? Like the tongue mutilation and teeth pulling.
Yeah. You need it to carry you through.
Everyone who I've shown this movie to has liked it. Even people who aren't into extreme cinema, like they're like, yeah, this is a good movie. So I think there's something about Oldboy that captures people's hearts.
It's a very interesting film.
To say with that expression. Yeah.
And I think like it might be a subtle kind of thing on the director's part, but I think like that line that he presents at the start of the movie, like laugh and the world laughs with you, weep and you weep alone. Like, that's pretty much how you should watch this movie. You should just have a laugh, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was your guys' viewing experience? Did you guys watch this together? Because I said watch this with a couple of drinks and with some friends, because it's like, this is like a group experience movie as well.
Oh yeah, we took that advice. Yeah.
Yeah. We watched it together. It was very fun watching it with you.
And I'm glad we did. It was more fun together.
Because Margaret was trying to predict
Yes.
the movie every 2 minutes and somehow kept getting it right. And it was
I think I did pretty well.
Oh, really? Okay.
And Rhiannon was very concerned for me that my mind kept going to those places that I was correct.
Okay,
I watched too much Game of Thrones.
Maybe you need a little less Oldboy in your life.
Maybe it's not for me. But yeah, every time something crazy happened, Rhiannon and I would be like, this is quite a movie to recommend to someone you don't know very well. Like, I like the guts you guys had to be like, you know what, watch this movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had a lot of fun together. I think I needed
That's
someone
good.
that I could turn to and be like, this is insane, right? Like, it's not just me. This is crazy, right? And it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think you'd be able to recommend this movie to any of your friends?
Yes, but with a lot of caveats. A lot of trigger warnings of certain things. But I think so.
Yeah, I often have a habit of, like, if there's a movie that I really like this is even from high school as well, like, I would often, like, make people watch the movie. Like, not ask them to, I'd, like, make them watch it. Like, I would, like...
Jeffrey Dahmer.
I would, like... I'd, like, make DVDs. Like, back then we didn't have hard drives or Google Drive, so I would make like these DVDs for people, like, you gotta watch this movie. Yeah, I think like the best experience or the best memories of this movie is taking them to a group of people that haven't watched it, and like the last good memory of this is like I finished a shoot for a music video and we were just chilling out, and then I'm just like, oh yeah, I happen to have Oldboy in my pocket. Let's watch this movie. And it's just like, yeah, there you go. We'll watch it. And then obviously during the climax, there was a lot of yelling at the screen. I'm like,
It's working.
Conducted this. Yes, like my orchestra is complete. And then
You do a little evil gasm of your own time just while watching. And
like
how many of those people are you still in touch with? I wonder.
I do like the idea of Tavi walking around with like a trench coat, opening it with like bootleg copies of Oldboy and be like, hey kids, do you want to watch Oldboy?
Oh no, you're not wrong.
Like,
that's exactly what I
It's
do.
like Pennywise the Clown, but potentially more terrifying, depending on the movie he recommends.
I love that.
Why do you think people are drawn to this movie, or even with its transgressive themes, they kind of accept it? Like, what do you think is the thing about Oldboy?
Probably the mystery of it all, right?
I was gonna say it grips you, and they really don't give much away, and it really draws you in when they don't give you answers that they do eventually answer. I think it's the mystery.
Yeah, because we were trying to guess the whole time. We spent the entire time, it's like, why was that man imprisoned? We were trying to figure it out. So even if we weren't looking at the more violent scenes, we were still paying attention, you know?
Like, because I rewatched it just recently. I hadn't watched it in a while. And I feel like while I was watching it, I was like, this movie is a lot weirder than I remember it being. Like, even like in the initial scenes when he is in prison and there's like all the stuff with the ants and like just the way that that scene is presented, like it's so frenetic and fast paced, but nothing is explained really at the same time. Because you're getting Dae Su's narration, right? So you're getting his perspective of it, but he's so in the dark that all he can give you is kind of like the facts about his daily life while he's in this prison. So like how attached to TV he becomes, and like how he starts writing a diary. So you get his point of view, but you don't really get any answers, and it's so weird of a setup that I was like, oh, maybe it is a bit harder to get into than I remember, because I remember like watching this and just instantly falling in love with it. So yeah, I was just curious to see like whether that's just me being weird or whether it is like accessible to other people.
Well, he makes a lot of like weird aesthetic choices, because like the color palette of this movie is unlike many movies you'll see. Like he used a lot of like greens and purples in this movie, and like a lot of people who will see like a green tinge or like a green filter in movies, it usually like associates it with like sickness or decay, and people, it kind of like turns you off, and they don't recommend doing it. But Park Chan Wook's like, I'm gonna do green because, and then because this movie is part of like a Vengeance trilogy, which they're kind of like unrelated different stories, but they're just connected through the theme of revenge. And the other movies, they also have that like green tinge as well, which kind of makes things feel off. So I think that kind of adds to the weirdness of it. It's funny, like you mentioned the ants, Dan. Like, what do you guys think the ants? What's the point of the ants? What's up with the ants?
Oh, honestly, so much of the movie blew my mind. I forgot about the ants. I was so dead by the end. I didn't have time to think about the ants. Was it part of all the like hypnotism stuff? Was that what it was kind of meant to be? Just part of the way he was going a little crazy from all that? I don't know what else.
It's definitely something to do with his mental state, his craziness. I mean, it's kind of ambiguous how much hypnotism was going on at that point, right? Because he was getting gassed every day.
Right. That can't be good for you. That kind of helped.
Yeah, it's funny because even director, like, he's just like, oh, I don't really know what the ants symbolize.
I love that.
He just put them in. He's just like, oh yeah.
I just love ants. He's like Michael Douglas's character in Ant-Man. I just fucking love ants.
Oh, yeah, he just loves ants.
To be fair, it does make you so uncomfortable. Like, it's just another thing in the movie that's like, we could have dead air, or I could make you viscerally uncomfortable for seemingly no reason, and that is pretty effective.
Because he says, like, ants, he thinks ants are cute. Like, one ant is cute, but, like, several ants is terrifying. So I was like, ants.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But, yeah, it's cool how they kind of bring it back later when Mido is introduced, and she's talking about how ants kind of... lonely people tend to see ants. And then she's like, not me, though. I'm fine. But, like, lonely people... I heard from a friend that lonely people see ants. And then it cuts to, like, a scene where she's on the train and she sees a giant ant. So, yeah, I mean, maybe that was just a nice way to kind of, like, tie the two characters together in their loneliness.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you guys were talking about some of the more violent scenes in this film. Like, what did you think of the violence in this movie?
I was really affected by the violence.
So what was the first violent scene where you were, like, kind of cringing away?
I mean, I did turn away from a lot of it.
Yeah.
Maybe it was the
tooth
teeth
thing? The teeth thing, yeah.
The teeth got
Maybe.
me. I couldn't do
You
the
have a
teeth.
thing about teeth. Though, that's like, you don't like teeth.
Yeah, I remember putting it on mute a few times. I remember closing the laptop screen a bit, and then me and Margaret would say, is it over? And then the other one would say, like, oh, I don't know, I'm not watching it either.
I'm not looking either.
That happened a few times.
It'd be hard if it's on mute.
Yeah.
You gotta wait for the screaming to die down.
Yeah.
But I love the build up to that scene, though. You know, like just the build up of music and how it goes from one horrible thing to the next. Like he comes in with the hammer, and then it cuts to like the guy and he's got his mouth taped open and he's got and you kind of see it coming, but it's still horrible.
It doesn't make it any easier.
No.
Yeah, although the general like blunt force like gun or like physical violence like the hallway scene, I guess we're all a bit desensitized to that. It's just when it gets creative our brains are like, oh no.
It's funny because like sorry, I'm gonna get like really geeky on this episode, but like because Park Chan Wook was saying like when he was making the movie he didn't want to make it like too cruel or too violent, so he didn't show a lot of the teeth.
Restrained.
But like, I'm not sure if he succeeded in that because it's still because he said he didn't want to focus on the cruelty, but it's like, I don't know about that, man. This is a pretty like heavy movie.
Maybe he's comparing it to his other Vengeance movies. I think his other Vengeance movies might be crueler. Especially Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. I feel like that was maybe more uncomfortable for me to watch.
Yeah, it felt it's a bit more
darker.
Yeah.
It felt a little bit less cartoonish, I think.
Yeah, Sympathy is a bit more realistic, and Lady Vengeance it's not as violent as the other two, but there's a really not as transgressive, but there's a really like hard scene to watch in that movie that like got me as well. And it involves kids, so it's just like, whoa.
Oh, right.
I was like, yeah, it was rough.
Yeah, maybe that's like, what he means by restrained. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I guess we should thank him for his restraint.
Yeah, thank God.
But yeah, you mentioned the hallway scene. So the hallway scene's pretty iconic at this point. You guys like the show Daredevil, right?
That is what came to mind. It has another iconic hallway scene.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that was inspired by Oldboy. I don't know. I think maybe I read that somewhere. I don't know.
I think so.
But just the look and the musical score attached to it, the fact that it's made to look like it's done in one take. I don't know if it actually is one take, Tavi. You mentioned they did it 13 times.
Oh, hell yeah.
And maybe they chose the last one, right?
Yeah. No, it was one take. Apparently, it was supposed to be like a pretty involved shoot with like a lot of different angles. And then I think the stunt coordinator or the martial arts choreographer just said, let's just do it in one take. And then, it saved the crew a lot of time. But the actor, Choi Min Sik, kudos to him. He does a lot of his own stunts in this movie. Like, dude, like, if I can't imagine doing any of that, like, I'd just be dead.
You better believe Josh Brolin didn't do all of that.
To be fair, I think Josh Brolin did do his own stunts in that movie.
I like Josh Brolin. I think I like the talent behind that film. I just don't like that film.
Right.
Don't watch the remake. Like, I'm glad I got to show you guys the original first because like, I've spoken to people and they're like, oh yeah, watch the remake first.
Oh no.
And then I have like a convulsion. Like, I will go into,
that's even worse than if you mention Crazy Rich Asians to Tavi.
Even worse.
Even worse. I was just like frothing on the ground, just like, oh, is that guy all right? It's like, he'll be fine.
I mean, one thing I did really love about the hallway scene is it's shot with the wall taken out. Because obviously in Daredevil, it's just shot from the end of the corridor and it looks like a normal hallway. And part of that realism is nice, and it really, like, encloses the space and makes it claustrophobic, but it is really cool how they take out the whole wall and it's all just from the side, because everything's in view, and that's so much more impressive that you can see, like, 15 guys constantly, and it all still works really well, and it all looks pretty flawless. I thought it was really impressive, and, like, a cool artistic idea.
It's definitely iconic. I think every martial arts or action film has mentioned Oldboy as a influence.
I think especially for that era of action. Back then it was like a fight scene kind of kept going, but they didn't really show the fatigue of any of the characters in like during the course of the fight scene. Like it's more common to do that now, especially with Asian martial arts films like movies like The Raid, where you can see the characters get progressively tired as the fight continues. But back then it was like they didn't really do that as much. So it really cool thing to do, even if you have to actually make your actor physically tired by shooting it 13 times.
Yeah, maybe not great for the actor.
No, he's a gun. He would have been like 40 something at the time. That actor. So like doing a lot of that is it's especially painful on the body.
Yeah.
Shall we talk about his performance? Because this is like one of Tavi and our favorite actors.
Yeah,
He's a
one
boy.
of our favorite actors. Yeah.
Yeah, he's so good.
He's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, he's one of those actors that is like maybe 40% craft, but 60% entertainment. Like, it's a really good mix of like,
Yeah.
Okay.
like some people might find it overacting, but I love overacting. It
I like overacting as well.
just makes things like a lot easier to remember.
Yeah.
It's not for everybody, but like, how do you feel about his performance in this film?
I mean, he was brilliant. I don't know. I don't know anything about this man, to be honest. Is he? This is a really dumb question. Is he like a really big actor?
Yeah, I think he is.
He's a pretty heavy hitter in Korea.
He's pretty heavy hitter.
In
Korea.
He's in the movie Lucy with Scarlett
right.
Johansson.
Yeah.
I think that was his Hollywood debut, and I think he quickly retreated back to South Korea after that film. I mean, he's definitely in his element in these kinds of films. If you look at his body of work, like, he's usually playing a protagonist or an antagonist that is quite colorful, I would say. Like, he does. There are a few like roles where he's a bit more subdued, but I don't really enjoy those
Right.
like, we've talked about the Tiger before, Tavi, where he's a lot more subdued in that film, but it's not as memorable as when he's just cutting sick.
Pretty forgettable. Yeah.
He's really captivating.
He's got another movie called I Saw the Devil, which, if you can stomach Oldboy, I Saw the Devil is maybe a cut above that in terms of traumatic cinema.
I reckon I would show you guys I'd recommend a movie that's a bit like on the other end of Oldboy, because Oldboy is a lot. Yeah. So I'll give you something nicer to watch. But
I appreciate that.
if you know me and Dad, like, my nice is a bit skewed. My nice versus like evil level, I guess. It's like, that wasn't nice at all. I was like, what do you mean? That was a beautiful movie. But
if the standard is Oldboy, I can do anything lower. I'll be
Oldboy
there.
is maybe the medium. It's
God. Yeah, okay, that's my standard. I don't think I could go much further.
But to answer your question, Rhiannon, he is pretty prolific in South Korea, but
definitely,
hasn't really made the cross to Hollywood. Nor should he. I mean, he's kind of in the same realm as Song Kang-ho from Parasite, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Just do well and just do good stuff in Korea. Don't need to go to America and make mediocre films. But actually, to throw it to you guys, and keeping in theme with your podcasts, talking about characters, like, what do you think about the character of Dae Su?
I thought it was really cool. I thought it was really interesting. I mean, I think it does really...
Yeah, like, you think he was a cool bloke, or like the way he...
Not
I don't think he's a cool bloke at all.
He wasn't that cool. But, like, as a character, I thought it was pretty unique. He had no chill. But I thought it was quite fun, because I think people are often afraid to make their protagonists unlikable or, like, unrelatable. And I think he is very bizarre. I mean, he goes through an immediately very unrelatable experience. And I like that when he came out the other side, they were like, yeah, he's not okay. He's not. And it was interesting seeing how they processed that. And I think it really does rely on that actor's performance, because he is so captivating. And it's all based around just how paranoid he is the entire time. And you're always kind of watching him like you have no idea what he's thinking and necessarily what he knows. And I thought it was really captivating as a main character and kind of despicable in a way. I thought it was really interesting.
Well, me and Margaret always complain when we watch something that when a character has, like, usually been like imprisoned for like a decade, they're normally absolutely fine. Like I watched X-Men Days of Future Past like this afternoon, and you know you have Magneto who was in prison for like 10 years, and he's absolutely fine. He's not
He's so
fazed by
chill.
that at all.
Yeah, I mean he's a mutant supremacist, but he was that before he went into the prison.
Yeah, he was already that.
Yeah.
If anything, he's chilled out.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, it was nice to see in this movie that it actually did affect him. You know, you can see the effects of it.
Like he's weird as well coming out the other side. Like he's spent 15 years in this prison with only TV as his companion, and he's picked up all these weird kind of speech nuances as well because like he hasn't had people to talk to. Yeah, I mean, like when he sees a woman for the first time, it's really weird.
He's like,
He's like clinging to the elevator. And like before he
Yeah.
goes into, like his initial character introduction when he's in the police station and he's just a drunk, like loser. Like he's unlikable from the get-go. He just turns into a different kind of unlikable.
Yeah, he's like immediately unreadable, and you don't really know what to think of him. And then as you follow his experiences, you're like, I feel like I kind of get you. I don't know why, but I feel like I do now. I still feel like I understand him, even though I have no reason to.
Yeah, so you did kind of rally behind him? Like,
Yeah, well...
because the villains in this film are not presented quickly because of all the mystery. They are kind of shrouded. So you don't really have a face to pin your like hatred on initially. You're just following Dae Su. But you were rooting for him coming out of the prison?
I think it flip-flopped back and forth, because I think he didn't know what he wanted. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, man, and then he made a decision. I was like, oh, I don't know about that. I don't know. In general, I suppose you do just, like, by the nature of spending time with him for a movie, you want good things for him. You want him to figure himself out. So I think you do end up being on his side in a way, just so he can stop suffering.
It's interesting that you mentioned, like, he is very unlikable. Like, the character himself as a person is someone I would probably in real life not want anything to do with, but we follow him in this movie, and I guess it's like I wonder why such an unlikable person has such a compelling journey, and I think it's just like the journey of revenge, but there's definitely some very like sympathetic aspects to his plight, like, you know, his wife's been murdered, his daughter is missing, and I think Koreans do that pretty well.
Like, I think that the director like takes pains to make sure that Dae Su is unlikable on some level. Like the way he kind of writes down all of the people that he's wronged, and it's just this massive 3 volume like list of people. Like he's just not a good guy. And like even when he eventually gets out of prison and finds out where his daughter is supposedly living in Stockholm, and like he doesn't try to contact her at all. He's like, vengeance takes precedent in his mind. Like even though we are following his quest for revenge, at the same time, you know, if he was a good person, he could just turn the other cheek, but because he doesn't have the ability, you know, it's kind of like,
I just feel like there's weirdly a lot of cowardice to him that also is deeply unlikable. Like, it's not just that he's like, I'm gonna do my mission, and it's not like when he says he's not gonna call his daughter, I don't think it's really for revenge. I think he just is too cowardly to do it.
100%, yeah.
And I think that makes him more unlikable. Like, at least stick to your guns, but I don't think he does.
Yeah, it was very non-committal, like when he went to get that information, you know. It seemed like he was almost hoping that he wasn't going to find her. And then when he did find out where she was, he's like,
I didn't think he wanted to at all, like, because...
Mido does that, right? She goes off and,
No, he stumbles on her with all that hypnotism shit. But I think, like, Dae Su himself is just, like, he's basically just a pillar of vengeance. So whether or not he has the ability or the chance to contact his daughter, he's like, nah, I just want to hurt people. It's like when he ties up that guy to pull his teeth out, he doesn't really allow the guy to talk, but because of the way he's opened his mouth to give information, it's just like, I just really want to hurt you because, like, you fucked up my life for 15 years. So he's kind of going on this almost false journey of, you know, looking for his daughter, where he just wants revenge. I think that's, like, the big difference between this movie and the remake. Because the remake is a bit more sweet, I guess. Because
That makes sense.
Josh Brolin's trying to look for his daughter, while Choi Min Sik's like, "Nah, I'm just gonna fucking rip your teeth out. I'm gonna beat up a hallway full of guys and do all sorts of like bad shit just because he wants to hurt people." Which is interesting because like I'm sure we've all had that feeling in us at some point. Or am I just speaking for myself?
Speak for yourself, honestly.
Yeah.
Not yet. Maybe I'll get that one
What
day.
feeling are you talking about, Todd? The feeling that you want to rip out people's teeth? Because I think that might be unique to you and Dae Su. But you mean like the feeling that kind
Well,
of...
I think basically like we all have a Patrick Bateman beneath us.
Yeah.
And I think that's why these films are really good. Is because they highlight the shadow self of ours. But it's kind of like you kind of get to know that aspect of you, I think. That aspect that is
Right.
darker that
Yeah.
like no one really needs to know about. But like you can kind of call it out when it kind of rears its head, I suppose. Like there's a difference between like action and thought, I guess. So obviously in Oldboy he's taken action to the extreme.
But you are kind of rooting for him because...
Yeah, you're rooting for him.
Like
Yeah.
when he's pulling the guy's teeth out, you're like, yeah, you deserve this. But also, I don't like watching this because it's...
Yeah. Yeah, that is kind of interesting because I feel like a lot of movies like John Wick are like power fantasies. Like you want to see him kill people and you kind of want to be him. Like there is that rage that you don't want to admit is like a fantasy. But I like that Oldboy kind of dares you to like lean into that power fantasy and then is like, you're kind of fucked up for wanting to do this, and you're like, maybe I shouldn't be rooting for this. It kind of calls you out and that's kind of fun. But
There's
going too far.
another there's a popular Japanese director which we may get you to watch some of his films in the future, but there's have you heard of Takashi Miike?
I don't think so.
Yeah, he did a lot of like really prolific early 2000s like shock movies. I think his most famous work is Audition, if you've heard of that film.
I think I have actually,
but-
yeah.
Yeah, he often, like, what he does with his films is he makes them violent, but he mixes the tones a lot with, they can be often very cartoonish, but then it's like, this is fucked up. So he kind of
Right.
tests how much violence you kind of enjoy to the point where, like, it's uncomfortable. And I think a lot of Korean movies kind of do this as well. There's like, even with Parasite and Squid Game, there is a level of like odd tonal humor shifts. Like, have you guys noticed this watching Korean films or Asian films in general?
Yeah, I guess so.
Potentially.
I mean, yeah, I see what you mean with Parasite and that kind of idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think I get what you
it's
mean,
a
yeah.
it's a pretty common thing in these movies to make the audience feel unsure about how they're supposed to feel. I think it's like an effective way to put the audience on the back foot so that you're not sure what's going to happen. Like I know, Margaret, you were able to kind of accurately predict what was going to happen
For
next.
better or for worse, yeah.
But like I think because most of the time the audience is like quite unsure about how they're feeling when they're watching these scenes, it does make it a bit more unpredictable, plot wise, and also like tone wise. Like you can never really be sure like whether Dae Su is the good guy, which kind of makes like the resolution of this film also like you don't really know how to feel about the resolution of this film. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think a general audience can get used to this kind of tonal shift? Because we've seen like there's a Parasite and Squid Game are super popular, but like when you're taught like storytelling or screenwriting, a lot of the advice is make the tone consistent. And I've shown some people like stuff that I've worked on where I've tried to like shift tones, and the criticism is always like, oh, this part feels tonally weird.
Right.
And it's like, oh, okay. But it's kind of different. Like what?
I mean, you say that, Tavi, but like Marvel movies are kind of like quip central, right? Like there'll be like kind of brooding scenes, and then suddenly someone will just crack a joke. So I
that
think
kind of keeps a consistent light tone, though.
yeah, that's true. Yeah,
Like with movies like Oldboy or Parasite, or even Mother or Snowpiercer, there's like these weird, like they're very dark themes, but they're often dealt with in like this very oddly realistic manner, like that kind of contrasts the scene. Just like, yeah, it's weird. Like, I really like these shifts, and it seems like a lot of people do, but I think when it's presented in some forms of media, or just like when it's, I guess, being conceived, it's not really taken to heart, or it's not really initially loved. And I wonder if there's this shift. Do you think there's like a shift in movies in general, like barring just Asian movies? Do you think? I wonder if this is the path forward. I don't know. I'm just talking minds here. I'm just like just talking to myself as well.
I feel like movies do tend to have a consistent tone. I feel like that's like a screenwriter tip of it will usually make your movie better, but it's one of those where you can break it as long as you make it work. And I feel like audiences probably should be exposed to like contrasting tones more just because it's more interesting. But I think general audiences, I don't want to say like, like your average moviegoer, I guess, not to diminish that, but like I don't think they take well to that, because I don't think they're used to being challenged in that way. And even though it's subtle, it can really challenge you as a viewer. But maybe as like, because I think it probably happens a bit more in like Korean cinema, right? From what I've seen, I guess it probably does more. And I think if those movies become more widely seen, maybe audiences could get used to it. I'd like them to, because I think it's really fun and really creative. But I think they could get used to it, but I think it would take a lot more movies to get the average person to deal with that. Because I think people are used to being kind of handheld in that way, where they know what's going to happen, and they don't like when that changes.
I think Margaret's probably right. If you do it right, then yeah, people are on board. But I think it is something that's a bit hard to do, right? To get that balance right. Like we've often talked about how like anime often mixes tones, and there'll be these wild tonal shifts throughout the course of even one episode of an anime, which I think probably goes to explain why anime doesn't have like a larger mainstream appeal, because it's weird to watch. Like,
it's pretty
kind of like if you're used to it, you just kind of like go with the flow, right? When there'll be like a really cute character just murdering a bunch of people, you're like, yeah, this is anime. It's like a truth. I think it's probably like that balance is a bit off when it comes to like a more mainstream or like appeal. I don't think that kind of thing will ever be super popular. But I think like movies like Parasite and Oldboy kind of tread a more even like line. It's not wildly fluctuating, but it's enough to make the movie a bit more interesting, I think.
Yeah, I think it adds something.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about the antagonist of this film, Lee Woo-jin?
Oh, that was so fun.
We loved it.
We loved it.
Jin especially.
Yeah.
It was so fun. Yeah.
Yeah, the scene where he was talking about how he has like some kind of implant in his heart or something, I can't really remember. A bypass, that's the word. And he told the doctor to make him a remote so that he can switch off his heart when he wants to. I was losing my mind. I thought
That's some next level super villainy right there.
So cool.
It's weird because it should put him on the back foot, but like those very specific circumstances, it gives him all the power because Dae needs answers from him. So it just traps Dae in like such a really beautiful way. The guy's having a lot of fun with his
so
revenge. No, I mean like the character himself as well is just like loving his revenge plot.
Yeah, and he's like silky smooth, and like it's so contrasting to our protagonist who's so like jagged and frantic and so straightforward, and our antagonist is just, I'm not gonna lie, he's very sexy. He's just kind of like sitting there, and he's so calm, and he's just so like confident. It's just so funny, because I feel like normally you'd maybe see the reverse in like your protagonist and antagonist, but I like that he was so chill and so smooth. It was so weird.
Just always walking around naked in his penthouse.
Smooth boy with his tramp stamp or whatever he's got going on down there.
You did mention then there's a contrast between Dae Su, the protagonist, is like ragged and old, while Woojin is like young. But in the film,
they're
supposed to be the same age.
Or maybe like Woojin is a year younger.
No, they're the same age because they're in the same class.
No, Dae Su is in the same class as Woojin's sister, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, they're around the same
very
age.
similar age. So what did you think the reason for that is, like to have Oldboy basically be old?
I mean, that's what 15 years in a really do to you, right?
Yeah, that
Fucking
was
dumplings.
Great. No sunlight. Stressed every night. I don't think you're gonna be looking at Woojin after that.
No.
Yeah, compared to like a life of luxury where or you don't have to worry about money really, like you've got all your advisors on hand. All you got to do is like focus on your revenge plot really, like that's
Which is going swimmingly. His revenge is going great. He keeps playing into his hand. It's going wonderfully. Yeah.
So many resources going into the. I love to be in the room when like his accountant is talking to him about like all these expenditures for this project that he's got going on.
Yeah,
That's
like
not
the rent
generating
changes
him
on
any
the
money.
building, and it's like, we'll just pay for it.
It's kind of like Batman's financial advisor, but they don't know that Bruce Wayne is Batman. Whereas these people, they're pretty like clued in that this guy is just messing with Dae Su for personal reasons.
The commitment is crazy. Like, the reason becomes, obvious and you understand, but like, that's a lot. That's such a long con for what is maybe not the biggest reason in the world. I love the commitment. He never second-guessed himself. He was never like, is this too much? He was like, no, this is just enough. This is justified.
Yeah. And it's cool because it ties into the theme. Like, is this movie like Dae Su's revenge story, or is it Woojin's revenge story? I mean, it's both, but who is more justified in their revenge, I guess.
Yeah.
I love how his riches are not explained. He's just
a rich guy.
Rich. He's just rich. He's
just
like,
really
you don't know what he did.
Rich boy.
But I think it just shows his determination. Like, he is so invested in his revenge that he's probably done some shady stuff or worked really, really hard just because he wants to get revenge on Dae Su. And I think that like just adds to his level of character where he's like his sole goal, that's his only goal in life, is to get revenge on Dae Su.
He's a different kind of unhinged, isn't he, compared to
Yeah.
There's a really, like, one of my favorite scenes is where he overhears Dae Su's friend in the internet cafe, and Dae Su's friend's talking about his sister in a negative way, and then he just takes the CD out of the CD tray, snaps it, and stabs the guy to death. And then he's the way he speaks to Dae Su after, there's like this really funny line where he's like, you got to find out the truth, Dae Su, because that'll set you free or something. And he's like, okay. Yeah. And I just cracked up when
me and Dad always laugh at like when Korean films, they'll use like that little bit of English to like kind of emphasize some kind of point. And it's like, the one thing about that scene is it's pretty unrealistic, because I've actually tried to break a CD and it's not very hard. It's not very easy to do.
It's not very easy.
Like but I wanted to stab someone, and I tried doing that. It didn't work. So I was like, so that person ended up living.
It's just
I was
someone
gonna say, were you like threatening him and you were like, give me a sec. Hold a sec.
It's just a lot easier than it's a lot harder than it looks, guys.
It's so fucking bendy, and I was just like, this isn't working. This is like I gave up.
Maybe it was a 2,000 years CD, Tommy.
Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe
I don't think
just
there is
that
another
unhinged.
era of CD. CDs are dead.
Maybe it's poor Korean like manufacturing. But yeah, he's a really good villain. And yeah, I think like you said, Margaret, like the switching between the general like portrayal of a hero and a villain is quite good. Like Dae-su is quite scruffy compared to Woojin. What about Mido though? Like Mido she's there. I found Mido's actions at the start of this film harder to comprehend than Dae-su's actions, because while we get to see things from Dae-su's lens, we don't really get the same treatment for Mido. So when she does things like take home a random like guy that's passed out in her shop, it's a little.
It's all hypnotism, right?
It is,
like,
and that's explained later down the line. But like initially, you're like, what is she doing? Like, what is she up to? What is her angle?
There's all like mistrust.
Because she's like clearly a fair bit younger than Dae-su, so like.
I mean, young enough,
just
potentially, but you know.
Yes, yeah.
He
So
could be.
like
I
to
mean,
me,
who
like
knows?
the romantic attraction as well was like pretty suspect. Like maybe a bit hard to like accept, I guess.
Yeah.
Initially, but what did you guys think of her like introduction? I guess.
Yeah, she was interesting, and I wasn't the biggest fan of her character. She was. Like you said, it's very hard to figure out what she wants and who she is, and obviously there is a reason behind that. But it did feel like, even though Dae Su is under the same like circumstances, you still know a lot more about him. And she just had some very weird scenes with him. They were very odd.
Yeah, they're both so weird. Like, they have intimacy, but you're just kind of like, you're both so weird that I don't know if this is intimacy or whatever it is.
Yeah, like the way she propositions him. Well, I mean, he basically attacks her in her bathroom and she like fends him off, but then she's like, actually, I'm into it. Just give me a bit of time. Yeah. And then, so it is really weird. So,
it's weird, because no one would act like that. Yeah.
No. And she doesn't have that many actions, I feel, throughout the movie. She's just kind of brought along with the story, and so you don't know much about her because she doesn't make many decisions. And I don't know if that's like women don't tend to be given as much like agency in movies. Like if it's just like 20 years ago and they were like, she's just going along with it, and like they didn't put as much thought into her character in a way, or if that's like a comment of the fact that she's kind of hypnotized to be there, so she doesn't have much of an opinion on what's going on. I wasn't really sure, but it does mean that she's really mysterious and also very weird.
She definitely feels more driven than Dae-su, like more kind of put on rails, I guess, than Dae-su. Potentially all of her actions throughout the film are because of hypnotism, right? Whereas Dae-su, even though that is the same case as Dae-su, it still feels like he's making his own decisions because we understand his motivation more, right? Whereas, Mido is a bit of an enigma. Like she tells us that she is a lonely person, so that kind of justifies some of her actions, like bringing home this rando, but not most of them. You're right, and like maybe she is attracted to Dae-su, like. Before we learn about the hypnotism, maybe I can buy that, sure. Like, he's not terrible looking, and he is mysterious, you know? So, maybe, but, like, I just found it a little bit hard to swallow, like, initially. And, like, even her initial introduction, she is quite random. Like, I think Tavi and I probably would have recognized the actress, but I think, like, she's first introduced in the sushi shop, and so you could just kind of mistake her for just, like, someone that's not going to be a main character because of the way she's presented. But
what do you think about that scene with the octopus?
Was it like a real octopus or something? It was like real.
Yeah, man. He did that for real.
Told me that. That's terrifying.
It's dangerous. It's a dangerous thing to do, I've heard.
You're not supposed to do
eat
that.
a real octopus.
Right?
You're not supposed to. Because they have suction cup thingies that can choke you if you do it in that way.
It does look
It was a
awesome,
delicacy in Korea, though. But I'm not sure if they do it as much anymore because of choking hazards.
Yeah.
But they used to do that.
I think.
Yeah, that's not cool.
Did you try that, Dan, once?
I have tried it in the past, but like for me, they chopped it up. So
okay.
like
Yeah, you
meet
didn't
her
do an
officer.
old boy style.
No.
You
Right,
walked up and
okay,
said,
yeah,
I want something alive.
It's kind of like, I don't think they do it anymore, but yeah, they chop
Right.
up the tentacles, but because of the way octopuses work, the tentacles still move around and stuff.
Right,
It's
yeah.
easily, you know.
Yeah.
But they are like quite small bite-sized pieces, so there's less choking hazard. But was that, like, do you know, Tavi, if that was a decision on the director's part to do it for real, or was it like Choi Min Sik just being really method, like how Leonardo DiCaprio ate that bison heart or whatever he did?
I think it was a little bit of both. Actually, I don't know. I think Park Chan Wook wanted to do like a dead octopus, like not wriggling, but like Choi Min Sik's like, nah, just give me the real deal.
Because these
So it's
days
kind
you
of
just CGI it, right? Like,
yeah, you use CGI it, but like it's just better to do it for real.
Yeah,
but
it
maybe
looks
the
badass.
animal.
it's not better for the octopus, Tavi.
It's not better for the octopus. The animal
the
cruelty
movie.
aspect of it.
Which I guess is what matters.
I think he ate like 3 octopuses.
Oh, yeah, because they wouldn't have done it in one take. You're right. Oh, no.
No, yeah, it's like a good idea on the first take, and then he sees like the plate of octopi, and he's like, "Oh, this is a mistake."
That actually reminded me. There's a movie, a Nicolas Cage movie. It's the one where he thinks he's a vampire.
Vampire's
yeah.
Kiss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he eats a cockroach, and it's like a real cockroach. And that was
Did he
like
do
that
that?
was all him as well. Like the director was like, "No,
God.
you don't need to do that." He's like, "No,
He's like,
I'm gonna eat this
give me the cockroach.
Give me more cockroaches." So
Yeah.
sometimes actors just they go above and beyond, and I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Do we just want to talk about? I mean, we've basically covered all the main characters.
Shall we talk about
Yeah.
the end then?
Yeah, the twist.
So if you haven't watched Oldboy, folks, you should. It's
Yeah, go
fun
watch
time.
it.
Yeah.
Come in with an open
don't
mind.
watch the Spike Lee remake.
Oh, yeah,
Don't,
yeah.
Stay away from that.
Oof.
Did Josh
Burn
Brolin
it.
eat an octopus for that? Probably not.
I
Right?
don't know what he ate.
If he doesn't, the movie's officially not worth it.
Yeah,
it's a fucking-
no.
it's
Watch the original,
it's a shit
2003 Oldboy, starring Choi Min Sik and Kang Hee Jong, directed by Park Chan Wook. Yeah, it's a good film, I reckon. And would you say it's a good gateway into Korean cinema? Do you think this is accessible enough to be considered a gateway movie?
It's. Oh, no, go on.
Honestly, I might recommend something a bit tamer first.
I was gonna say it's a
Being
big
Parasite
gateway.
first, and then Oldboy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Parasite's probably the better gateway because it's less violent and it's still as like impactful in its themes.
Yeah.
Still there. If you've seen Parasite,
depends who you are.
maybe give Oldboy a go.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
if
it
you
was
feel like
worth
unsubscribing to this podcast after watching Oldboy, so be it.
That's fair.
Yeah, it's fine.
I would just heed the warnings at the beginning of the movie. It might not be for everyone. There might be some triggering things. But if you go with the
Yeah.
warnings, you'd be fine.
Dan knows me. I don't put warnings in front of things.
Tavi
I'm just like, yeah.
hates preparing people for potentially traumatic experiences.
Yeah, you
I would
did
hate
tell
to
us.
be in one of your film sets, Tavi, honestly. I hate to be one of your actors. You never know what you're going to do next.
You did tell us before we watched the movie. You were like, "There's a lot of violence," and we were like, "Okay, yeah, we can do that." And I was like, "You're really underprepared. You're really undersold it." But I
It's not
suppose
the
if you go
violence
and like,
that you should be worried about, I guess.
So it's the violence. It's a pretty violent movie.
yeah,
Just telling you the truth.
yeah, you did. You were right. No lies were told.
There's a lot of violence.
Speaking of triggering things, the ending of this film, we see Dae Su finally figures out why he was imprisoned for 15 years by Lee Woo-jin. He went to school with Lee Woo-jin and Lee Woo-jin's sister, and he accidentally witnessed them in an incestual relationship. And because he told his best friend, who spread that rumor amongst the school, that eventually led to Lee Woo-jin's sister committing suicide by jumping off a dam. And that's why Lee Woo-jin imprisoned Dae Su, because he's got a big mouth, and because of that big mouth, his sister died. So we eventually get to a confrontation in the penthouse What did you guys like that scene?
Oh, so cool.
Yeah.
I think it was awesome.
How about we talk about the reveal first? So the reveal itself is quite like interestingly framed. It's like we kind of get a flashback scene of Dae Su in high school. It happens when he's at a hairdresser talking to a hairdresser that also went to the same high school. So it's kind of like cutting back and forth between the flashback and current day Dae Su, or current day Dae Su, sometimes also in the flashback. Did you find it confusing? I feel like I found it confusing the first time I watched it.
Oh no, I didn't find it confusing.
No, you guys
No,
were
I don't
okay
think
with
I did.
Okay. Was it like a huge revelation to you? Like,
I mean, it's a lot. I feel like I had kind of predicted, but I was throwing things out there just to kind of get it right. So maybe
Yeah,
I was
okay.
slightly primed because I'd thrown it out there. But I feel like it does kind of lead you there. I feel like, I don't know, you are expecting something big, and I think it does deliver in a way. But it definitely is a penny drop moment, I think.
did you feel like Dae Su was like villainized by this scene? Do you think like Lee Woo-jin's revenge plot was kind of justified because of his actions?
No.
No. If anything, this was the one moment I really felt for Dae Su. I was like, oh, I feel bad. That was like something you do as a kid. And then, that's the rest of your life.
To take a quote from Jaime Lannister, you know, the things you do for love.
Oh, damn. Oh, my God. Right.
So, I mean, who's to say, like, whether, you know, pushing a small boy out a window to protect your incestuous relationship is the wrong
I was going to
thing
say,
do.
were you Team Jamie in that moment? Are you going to bat for Team Jamie for pushing Brad out the window?
I really like Jaime Lannister. I'm like, he's a character that hits me right.
He's a
I just
legend.
like his smarminess. So maybe
Dan is basically the Lannister in this crew. Like Dan is always like in his
Without the wealth,
My
I would
image of
say.
Dan, yeah, like this
and
guy,
without
like Dan.
the golden locks, I would say as well. The
Like
beautiful
Dan,
hair.
like you messaged me the other day, and like like you said for lunch you're making like fries with duck fat. It's like Dan's the rich guy. He's the Lannister.
No. Okay, well, who are you then if Dan's the Lannister?
Ooh.
Who's that dude that like flays people? That's probably me.
You're a Bolton. Do you know what? Yeah, I get Ramsay from you. Yeah, I'll take that. That feels accurate.
Bolton. Just flay people with CDs that don't break.
Emotional flaying.
You said that you kind of picked the twist, did you?
Yeah,
Was that
I
Margaret?
did.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the
I
first
did.
twist, right?
Yes.
Oh, Mark got both of them.
Okay, nice. Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
it's more
Yeah.
messed up in here than I realized. But I think it was pure coincidence. It was still a very good reveal. And they didn't really like lead you there that much. Like I feel like it was really a twist. So good for them. Just because I predicted it doesn't mean much. It doesn't mean it was predictable.
Yeah.
I'm just crazy.
Yeah, the first one, you were kind of the first reveal, you were kind of throwing things out a bit, and you happened to be right. And then I remember when we were leading up to the second reveal, you know, obviously it's his daughter. I think, Margaret, maybe saying your logic was like, well, if they've done it once, they'll do it again. Like,
Yeah. If they've gone that far with incest once, they will absolutely keep going.
Sure, and they want to
Yeah.
keep a consistent theme, don't they?
Yeah. Tit for tat.
But it's interesting that you would pick something like that in a movie, especially like post Game of Thrones world. Like imagine back in 2003, like seeing something like this is quite shocking. Like
Oh, yeah.
it's really like, and I wonder like, how has the world like gone since then? Like, are we kind of used to these more like transgressive themes? Like a lot of we like to say that a lot of the movie culture is Marvel stuff, but there is a lot of like very dark shit, like for Oldboy, but Game of Thrones is really popular and it has a lot of the themes that you will find in like Oldboy, but it's a lot more accepted. Like,
Yeah.
I wonder if the audience are more accepting of
Yeah,
this
have we
kind of
gotten to
movie
the
that you
point
can
where
pick.
we're like,
Yeah.
it's probably incest? It's
Probably incest, yeah.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I think we are more like desensitized to that, I guess. I think
Yeah.
weirdly audiences are very willing to, I don't know, just ingest things with like incest in them. And I think recently media has been like, yeah, we can do that. Audiences are fine with that. I don't think necessarily audiences have changed. Or maybe they have. But I feel like movies are only just realizing that like people are okay with that and we can absolutely do that.
I think in 2003, when we first watched the Tavi, it was like an oh my god kind of moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty shocking. Yeah.
I don't know, maybe like they did make the remake 10 years later, but maybe that's why people weren't that accepting of the remake. Like people that had watched the original were like, this is a shit remake, and people that hadn't watched the original were like, this is weird and there's incest and I don't like it. I don't like it, Spike Lee.
Yeah, because like the incest aspect is an original piece of this movie, because this is an adaptation from a manga, Oldboy. So it was originally Japanese, and the reason was much more different. Like the reason was a lot more like Japanese. It's like, oh, I forgot what the guy the Woojin equivalent. He's like, oh, it's because like when I saw you, like I felt hate or something, and blah blah blah. It's a bit more like symbolism behind it, but Park Chan Wook just added this incest aspect to the movie. So like I wonder because on the surface he seems like a very chill guy, but there's obviously something going on
It's
beneath.
those guys that you gotta worry about, Tabi.
Yeah.
Like Junji Ito also looks like pretty chill guy, but he's written some messed
You'd
up
never
shit.
expect it.
Yeah.
But like because he put this into the movie, do you think that makes him like a bad person?
No. I don't see
No,
why it would.
I think it all depends on how it's presented, right? And it's clearly presented as something that's kind of horrifying. And, you know, you have two characters who, you know, partake in the incest, and it's the protagonist who is doing it unwillingly, and then the antagonist who's doing it willingly. I think it's just how it's presented.
Yeah, I wonder, like, were we ever supposed to accept Lee Woo-jin and his sister's love as, like, a justifiable thing to protect? Because, like, it does seem quite genuine, like, incest aside, like, the parting scene. Yeah, the parting scene between the two is, like, I found it tragic, you know? Like, how she's telling him to kind of remember her, and he's weeping as he's forced to kind of let go of her,
smiling,
for like the sake of both of them. Maybe, I don't know. It's a little bit unclear whether Woo-jin is making stuff up in his mind, like as to her feelings of the situation. But yeah, like I did find his, like, that part of his story quite tragic. Because and like you don't really like choose who you fall in love with. Yeah, like it's kind of like a justification that you can kind of understand, but it's still kind of hard to really get on board with. Which I think is quite effective. Like when you're presenting that on the antagonist. Because like a really effective antagonist is I've always found someone that lives in a gray area. Like they're not clearly evil, but it's their point of view that's causing their evil actions.
I think you brought up Jamie Lannister. I think that's actually a really good comparison, weirdly, because you have all that charisma and all that understanding of them despite their terrible actions. And even though there is an incestuous relationship with their sister that I don't think any of us would approve of, there's so much genuine feeling and like care and intimacy that you kind of can't help but feel for them in a way. And that I feel like is just a purely human thing. Well, like no matter how much it is revolting, you are watching them and you do kind of understand that care for each other, and you do feel for him in that way, even though he does take it very far with his revenge, but you do feel for him in that moment.
And
Maybe
they're both very smooth boys as well.
There's something about just like front loading all the charisma that you're like, I can't fully hate you because you're so intriguing and you're so cool.
I think Park Chan Wook is really good at doing that. He's like, here are a bunch of characters. This is the hero. This is the antagonist. But I'm not going to tell you if you think you should like this person or not. I'm not going to tell you if I think you should morally agree with them. I'm just going to present it as it is, and you kind of make up your own decisions. So in a lot of his other films, I don't think his characters do as bad a shit as this one, but like there's definitely like a level of empathy to each character's plight, including the villain. Maybe not as much as in Lady Vengeance. There's clearly a really bad dude, but yeah, I think that's just makes it so much more like interesting to watch and more compelling. And that's why I think people keep revisiting this film. Like, this movie had a 4K restoration in cinema recently.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for 20th anniversary. I didn't go to see it. I didn't have time.
I'm surprised we didn't get that version of it from you, Tavi.
Yeah. No, I do have that version. It's just too big.
I'm shocked you didn't like ship a cinema screening to my house with Oldboy on it that I could watch.
Oh, if I was Woojin, I would. I'd be like, oh, like, you watch it on your computer. No. I've got the cinema booked out. We've got like hors
We don't be
d'oeuvres and shit.
abducted by someone with an umbrella and like wake up in a cinema.
Yeah. Do you know what? I don't care how many people you kill. I would still be your friend if you did that. I don't care how many people you kill. That's too cool.
But because of the because of the kind of like blurred lines between the villain and the hero, it does make the resolution of this film all the more compelling. Because like once Dae Su finds out that he's basically been tricked into an incestuous relationship with his own daughter, he goes nuts. He goes mental. He has this like Tavi and I always call this the Dae Su moment in films, like when a seemingly cool character just loses their
Like,
shit.
loses their shit, yeah. Happens a lot in Korean movies since Oldboy, I think. Yeah, there's always a character who's seemingly cool and then they lose their shit and just start just yelling and acting like a dog.
Yeah, so he kind of reverts back to who he was before his imprisonment. Like once he finds out, they put him on the phone to meet her, and like he's talking to her like it's his child, like the same kind of phone
uses
call.
The term of endearment, the sweet term of endearment. You're like, no.
Gross. So you can see
That's
like
really
he can't unlearn that information. Well, he eventually does unlearn that information, but he can't like he instinctively can't like stop himself from seeing her as his daughter now, which is like hammers that nail in like the vengeance kind of plot is complete. At which point, you know, he goes through like every stage of grief, I guess, in that one scene. Like he gets angry, he gets violent, he starts bargaining, you know,
Only 2 takes for that scene.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, he's so good.
He's so good, yeah. And they use like multicam as well to get all the...
Right.
So that's why I think like they over the cut between the shots. Because I was watching this and I'm like, how'd you do this in 2 takes with the... Because usually you'd only use single camera for movies because it's just cheaper to rent. But like, give me the 2 cameras and just lose your shit.
So cool.
And
boy does he.
Oh yeah, it is quite cathartic because I feel like he's so wound up the whole movie. You needed him to kind of lose it, just to kind of complete that journey and unleash.
That's true. Yeah, even though he does exact vengeance on a number of parties before that scene, this is kind of the first scene where like he just releases everything and he gets like all the knowledge like as to the question as why he was imprisoned. But it's not good for him. He attacks he tries to attack Lee Woo-jin, who is protected by Mr. Han at this point. Who we haven't really spoken about. I think Mr. Han's pretty fun.
He's
pretty fun henchman.
He's a pretty...
We've seen this guy pop up here
character.
And there.
In some other films.
Oh, right.
But
he always plays a weird guy.
He always kind of weird, doesn't he?
Weird dude.
But yeah, he dispatches Mr. Han, and I think that's when he learns. Wait, is that when he learns?
No, he's already learned because like he starts trying to kill Mr. Han first after he finds out it's his daughter. Yeah, apparently, they spent like 15 days shooting that one sequence, especially.
Just
there's a lot
Choi
of
Min Sik falling into glass.
No, he fell into glass so many times. I felt so sorry for that guy because it was getting like really injured.
Actor stumbling into glass for 2 days.
There's only one part where they use a stunt double, and that's when Mr. Han throws him against like the glass window where it breaks. And they did that so many times, and like one of the takes, like the guy was like unconscious after.
Oh my
'cause
God.
He's just like been thrown against it so many times.
Sure,
Oh
yeah.
my
And then
god.
like yeah,
This is South
apparently
Korean filmmaking. There's not as many union actions in that part of the world.
I hope they have a union.
Apparently he quit stunt work after that.
no.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
It's a good shot though.
it's a really good shot.
I love that space. That room is so
Yeah.
cool.
It's so
It's such a,
cool.
like,
I
a-
love his little closet that kind of like
Yeah.
Yeah.
transforms out.
That
of
seems dangerous, though. I don't know. That seems quite dangerous to get like stuck in there. I don't know. That kind of freaks me out. But it looks awesome.
Imagine if his 15-year like revenge plot was foiled
Oh,
because
no,
he got
just
stuck in his
because he got
closet.
stuck
He
in his
got crushed by
wardrobe.
his automatic wardrobe.
I mean, there's
That's why he
something
always has
to-
guards around.
Yeah, that's true. That's what you pay them for.
Yeah, to
But yeah,
get you
there's something
unstuck.
to looking at that space, and it's so like sterile, and you're like, this guy lives here. Like this guy must be crazy. If this is his chosen house, this,
You don't
like,
see a bed. There's no bed in that penthouse. Where is he
I
sleeping?
suppose.
Like he's
But even
like
just-
he probably doesn't sleep. He's just
No, he has like a little hammock or something where he sleeps like a
Yeah.
bat.
yeah.
It's just
Morbius.
such like a cold, unforgiving room with like a weird shower in the middle, and it's all very like grey. And I'm just like, yeah, if this guy
But
lives
it's very
here,
theatrical at the same time.
Yeah.
The
oh yeah, the
lighted-
drama.
Yeah, the lit up like it's almost like he's designed it for the final climax of the film.
Oh, you
like,
know he has.
Yeah,
he's been
because he
thinking about
definitely led
this.
Odesu there.
Yeah.
It's like he's prepared the
Yeah.
perfect pair of scissors for him to open this this box up that's
Yeah.
going to ruin his life.
Yeah, he picked out the ribbon. He's been thinking about it. He has like scrapbooks for the aesthetic of what the day is
Yeah.
going to be. Yeah, I appreciate that.
100%. Could have picked some better goons though. Like if he was
Yeah.
Yeah, those guys got
Blacklisted
to be
ones.
earned.
Yeah, they went quickly.
There's a scene. It's kind of like not a huge moment, but he like takes the photo off the wall to reveal Woojin's sister. That was like the final photo, and it's just funny because that scene was surprisingly particularly hard to shoot because he kept like every time he took the photo off the wall, like all these other photos would just fall because they're only duct taped onto the wall.
Oh, no.
And he kept like fucking up. It was just really funny because they're like these actors are in their really like serious mode, and then he takes this photo off the wall once, and then he's like, "Oh shit, sorry guys," and then just reset, and then he just kept like it's just this repetition of him trying to take this photo
Right.
off the wall, but like all this shit would like it was almost like one of the hardest scenes to
Sounds
shoot.
like a nightmare as an actor to be like trying to use the right amount of force and delivering the most emotionally like poignant moment of the film at the same time.
He's like, "Oh shit, sorry guys."
Just cuts the
Yeah.
tension.
You mentioned the scene, the very final scene, where we've said that he does get his memory erased. Does he? Do you think he really got his memory erased? What do you think of that?
this is the
little
Inception-
weepy cry or
Inception
weeping
moment.
crying moments of
Yeah.
that movie?
Because there was a kind of question of did he forget that she was his daughter, or did he forget he had a daughter? Or did he erase all the memories? I guess is like the lingering questions, right? Either way.
So don't really know,
the
yeah.
hypnotist
Yeah.
basically splits his personality into two, one of which carries the secret, and that part of his personality is supposedly dead. But, like, hypnotism is, it's not always perfect.
Yeah.
I mean,
Not foolproof.
even though, this woman does seem like she knows what she's doing. I mean, like, they carried out this revenge plot pretty flawlessly. But yeah, there is a moment that Tavi alluded to where he sees Mido and hugs her. Like, Mido obviously doesn't know anything about their secret because
Yeah.
Woojin kind of spared Odesu that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the question still remains, does Odesu actually know? Because he's got that enigmatic laugh weep as he hugs her that he does,
Yeah.
like that crazy man grin that he's got.
I never considered that it didn't work. I never considered that. I just presumed the memory was wiped.
I mean, it would suck if it just didn't work, and he's like, damn it. Like, he sees her, and he's like, nah, damn it, I do know that she's my daughter. This sucks. And she's gone,
that's
and you can't
basically-
get a redo, you can't get a refund.
Yeah, it's not. It's like
true,
the
yeah. They went to New Zealand for no reason.
It's interesting because for any sane person, because it's implied at the end that he kind of wants to keep going with the relationship with the knowledge, so he thinks it's okay to just erase the fact that
he doesn't want to
she's
keep
his
going with
daughter.
the knowledge. He wants to keep going without
The
that bit
knowledge.
of knowledge.
Yeah.
But like the fact that he goes to that conclusion where like a normal person would be like, okay, let's not meet ever again like that. But
Yeah.
the fact that I think because he had been hypnotized to love her and she's been hypnotized to love him, that's why she acts so weird. Like, because, you know, there's a scene in the bathroom where he tries to, you know, assault her in the sense, but she still stays with him. It's because, like, they've been conditioned or brainwashed to love each other. So the fact that he still wants to continue the relationship is, like, just this kind of
He's a
method of
bad bloke,
brainwashing that's kind of
Tavi. He's a
fucked up.
bad dude.
Yeah, it's messed
Yeah.
up.
Like,
It's an
I've never
interesting
really thought
ending.
about the decision, but yeah, it's fucking messed up. Like,
Yeah.
because he acknowledges as well that he was hypnotized, so like he shouldn't have any kind of like, he shouldn't be blamed for his actions. Like when like he discovers Woo Jin's reason for imprisoning him, he's like, you hypnotized me to forget, and then you blamed me for forgetting and forced me to try to remember. That's not fair. But then Woo Jin says he didn't actually do that. You just forgot.
Yeah.
So, but he
Yeah.
acknowledges that like things done under the influence of hypnotism shouldn't be taken as gospel, right? And yet he still decides to pursue this relationship with his own daughter,
Yeah.
who he knows is his daughter, even though that is a construct of the hypnotism at play. So like, why? Like, he's so bad. He's a bad guy.
So messed up. And he's not even thinking about
It's pretty
her.
messed up.
Yeah.
Like, shouldn't she get a say in this? I know he's like sparing her, whatever, but also like, if that kids have webbed feet, you might want to tell her. You know,
Yeah.
she deserves to have a say in this in some way. But yeah, he's not. He's just disregarding her in that
No,
way.
he's a selfish. He's like Dan's right. He's a selfish character, and I think that's the point. And there's a Park Chan Wook said a lot as well. Like, Dae Su is not a good person. He's a selfish character. He just wants to do what he wants to do, but you still like follow his journey.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just like, yeah, that last scene is just like it's very perfectly haunting.
Yeah.
Just the where she like walks to him in the snow and she's like breathing on his hand, trying to defrost, warm him up, and it's just like at this point, like it just feels so wrong because you know the secret,
Yeah.
and then she just says like "I love you," and then like the orchestral swell kicks in, and it's just like it's a very like powerful. Like
I would have
moment
loved it
in this
if
movie.
he had
Yeah.
replied, "I love you too, sweet pea," and then credits.
Yeah.
Oh,
You
that
know,
would
with that
feel
same like maniacal grin on his
Yeah.
face.
No, I think that would have made it a bit too conclusive.
yeah. I know they
though.
were going
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
ambiguity, so
Ambiguity,
I
yeah.
appreciate that as well. But yeah, just like it's gross.
Like I feel like the most heartbreaking part, or the worst part of it, is that it is understandable. Like, I wouldn't do that. Personally. I would not keep shagging my daughter, but the worst part is you do get it. Even if he's wrong, you do kind of get it, and that makes it worse, because you kind of wished you didn't get it. You kind of wished it was like black and white, like, this is a bad thing to do, but the worst part is you do kind of understand, which makes you, like, question yourself and, like, challenges you as an audience member.
And I guess
It's
that's kind
interesting.
of like the last kind of impact of Woo Jin's revenge, is that he made Dae Su kind of understand how he felt for his sister on some level.
That's true. Yeah.
Like this relationship that's been built and something that you want to protect, even though it is wrong. So yeah, I mean, like Woo Jin, well played, sir.
His plan was so good. It was perfect. It all went so flawlessly, down to the minute details. Good for him.
Do we have anything more to say about this film, Tavi?
No, I think this is wrapping up pretty
Margaret
well.
and Rhiannon,
I think,
do you have any parting thoughts about this film?
It was a roller coaster, and I'm glad I did it. Thank you for showing it to us.
Yeah,
I did mean that.
We had fun.
Is that a real thank you, or you've
Yeah.
traumatized me kind of thing.
We'll see. We'll see how it pans out. But right now, I feel pretty good about it. We'll see if I go on a violent rampage soon.
Yeah.
But for now, I feel pretty good.
No, I'd be happy to do this. This was fun. I actually really enjoyed hearing your guys' insights about this film to maybe, let's say, an audience that doesn't really watch much of this extreme cinema, but like kind of really understanding it, like getting, especially just talking about the aspects of, it's wrong, but there's a like empathetic part about that, which is it's very interesting to hear. I wouldn't say accepting of the themes of the movie, but understanding the themes. So it gives me some hope for the future of cinema, which is good. But yeah, and I'm always interested in showing like the best of like Asian cinema to people who want to discover it, because it's really like it's a treasure chest. Like there's so much good stuff out there. Like it's really like fantastic.
There's a lot of
movies.
weird stuff out there as well.
A lot of weird stuff. Yeah. So the next movie I'll bring it down a dial. I won't.
Let's have a palate cleanser.
Bit of a palate cleanser.
But yeah, I mean, speaking of palate cleansers, we are Tavi and I are going to be on an episode of Character Chaos as well, where we will be talking about a much more likable character than Dae Su. A considerably more likable character. So that'll be on Rhiannon and Margaret's podcast. So check it out if you enjoyed this. But yeah, thank you again to both of you for joining us for this episode. But what did you guys think of Oldboy? Did you enjoy it? Did you relate to the themes? Could you understand the themes and accept them? Or did it traumatize you? Or do you prefer the American remake, perhaps? Starring Josh Brolin and Emma.
That's just no.
Elizabeth.
Don't watch the American remake. Don't even
Everybody's
promote
entitled
that,
to their opinion, Tavi.
You're entitled to your opinion, but then there's also.
But beware,
moments
Tavi
when you're wrong.
might snap a CD and stab you repeatedly if you prefer that film. Snap the DVD copy of
Snap the
Spike
DVD
Lee's Oldboy.
of Spike Lee's Oldboy.
But yeah, let us know, guys. You can get in touch with us at 2asianblokes@gmail.com. You can join our Facebook group to be part of the conversation, or you can follow us on Instagram at 2asianblokes if you want to see what we're up to. I will link Character Chaos in the description below. Please do check out their podcast because it's great. It's a really fun time, especially if you're a fan of fictional characters in all their forms. All right, I think that's us. Until next time, bye-bye.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.